I want you to picture the miracle on ice. You see the crowd going crazy. You hear Al Michaels screaming, "Do you believe in miracles?" You see the U.S. players standing on the podium, gold medals around their necks, while the Soviet Union watches in silence. It is the perfect American moment. There is just one problem. That's not what happened. That memory you have, it's a movie script. It's not history. And the movie didn't create the legend, it polished it. But on this show, we don't care about the polish. We care about the truth. Welcome to Best Moments Ever. I'm, Beardlaws, and what we're going to do here is we're going to build the definitive ranking of the greatest moments in human history. I've already gone ahead and established a founding board to kind of serve as our baseline. And, as you can see here, this is the founding board. The moon landing is, in my opinion, the ceiling. The Berlin Wall is kind of the standard, and today, the miracle on ice is coming for the crown. But to get there, it has to answer a dangerous question. Is this actually the greatest sports moment of all time, or is it just a semifinal game that got blown out of proportion because we needed a win in the Cold War? So why don't we go ahead and find out? To fully understand 1980, you have to understand the monster, the Soviet national team. It wasn't just a hockey team. They were a weapon of the state. They lived together in a military-style camp for 11 months out of the year. They didn't have families. You know what they had? They had hockey. And a year before the Olympics, they played the NHL All-Stars in a 3-game series called the Challenge Cup. These were the best pros in the world. These were guys making millions. And in the final game, the Soviets, they beat the NHL Star game, and guess what the score was? 6-2. They shut out the best players on earth. So when they played the U.S. college kids in an exhibition 3 days before the Olympics, nobody expected a game. The Soviets, they ended up winning 10-3 at Madison Square Garden. And here's the detail that nobody talks about. The Soviets weren't even trying. Their captain, Boris Mikhailov, sorry, I think I said that right, literally stood still for half the game. The Soviet players were laughing on the bench, and the U.S. players skated off that ice absolutely terrified. This wasn't David versus Goliath. This was a group of kids versus a tank that had been engineered to destroy them. So, how do you beat a tank? You don't use muscle. You use psychology. Enter Herb Brooks. If you watch the movie, Herb Brooks looks like a grumpy dad. In real life, he was a psychological tyrant. He knew his players couldn't beat the Soviets on skill, so he decided to beat them on hate. He rode his players for 6 months. He made them skate until they puked. He insulted them. He pitied them. And actually, he pitted them against each other. Why? Because he wanted them to hate him so much that they would actually bond together just to survive him. And by the time that they got to Lake Placid, those kids were conditioned like Navy SEALs. They weren't the most talented team by any means, but they were the fittest team in the tournament. And that is the only reason the third period even happened. Let's head on over to February 22nd, Lake Placid. The game starts. The U.S. they quickly, fell behind. But then a mistake happens that potentially and did change history. With 1 second left in the first period, Mark Johnson scores, let's go with a soft goal to tie the game 2-2. And the Soviet coach, the legendary Viktor Tikhonov, he did something that nobody expected. He panicked. He does the unthinkable. He benches the greatest goalie potentially in the history of the sport, Vladislav Tretiak. He pulls him from the game. Decades later, Soviet players said that was the moment that they lost. They saw their, general panic. And, they kind of froze. Let's fast forward to the third period. The U.S. takes the lead 4-3 with 10 minutes left. Now, watch the tape. For 10 minutes, the Soviets, It seemed like they forgot how to play hockey. They started shooting wildly. They missed passes in the final minute. They don't pull their goalie. Why? Because they had never practiced trailing in a game. They were so arrogant. They didn't even have a play for losing. The clock hits 0. Al Michaels screams the line, and the impossible happens. Now, we have to be the bad guys, right, in this story. We have to kind of separate the vibes from the facts. The case for greatness. It is probably the ultimate underdog story. It is democracy versus communism. The skates are a perfect 10 out of 10. But here is the case against. Remember how I said your memory is a lie? Well, point 1. This was not the gold medal game. The U.S. loses to Finland on Sunday morning. The miracle on ice becomes a great upset, not a legend. The Soviets still win gold. The miracle became, well, just a footnote. We have elevated a Friday afternoon semifinal to the status of a world championship. Point 2, nostalgia. Does the moment hold up if you take away the Cold War? If this game happens today, are we crying in the streets, or is it just a great upset on ESPN for 24 hours? The moment, it kind of relied pretty heavily on the emotional temperature of, well, 1980, and that's not a flaw, but it is a factor. Is this moment great, or does it just remind an entire generation of when the world felt simpler? Time to score it, right? Once the numbers are locked, just remember that they're locked forever. Remember that classic movie, Forever? So yes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna score them on impact, emotional hits. We're going to do cultural memory, and then every once in a while, every episode, we're gonna throw in a wild card. This wild card is the stakes, meaning not like the stakes for the red meat. The stakes, like how high were the stakes for this, and we're also going to talk about longevity. So let's go ahead and talk about impact. I mean, it saved the Olympics. It launched a hockey boom, but it didn't end the Cold War. You know what I mean? As things changed and the mood changed throughout the world, things seemed to dwindle down. But at the moment, it did have a pretty high impact, right? So, there's other moments in history where, we just needed that moment. And to be honest, the U.S. needed that moment. So for me, it was a 9.2 out of 10. Emotional hit. I mean, for that generation, it's probably a solid 10. Well, 9.9. Nothing that I am able to, come up with in my mind in a ranking system is a perfect 10. But for us, it's usually a 9-ish. But I'm going to give this a slight bump because even as a history lesson, it still hits harder than almost anything. And if you sit down and watch it, it still gives you goosebumps, even if you weren't there. And I'm not going to lie to you, I've been to the arena. I've been to the site. I've been to Lake Placid a couple of times, and it still gives you some goosebumps. And obviously, I wasn't alive in 1980 for this, but it's still a powerful moment. It's a moment that true sport fans will never forget. It'll always be in your brain. I mean, you could bring this up to any sports fan, even if they're not like a hockey lover, they're going to know this. And let's be honest, there's going to be a lot of people as well that aren't sports fan that still know the miracle on ice. So for an emotional hit, the nostalgia, the goosebump factor, I'm going to give this a 9.4 out of 10. Cultural memory, do you believe in miracles? Is the most famous sentence probably in sports history. And I mean, that's a pretty big cultural memory. Like I said, whether you're a sports fan, whether you're not. So for me, 9.3 out of 10. Longevity. I mean, this has survived over 40 years. But without the movie, does Gen Z even know about it? Maybe not. But there is a movie that expanded a little bit longer. And I think that moment is going to be etched in a lot of people's brains. So for me, 9.1 out of 10. Let's talk about the stakes. Amateurs versus pros. David versus Goliath. Tanks versus, at that point, I don't even know what we were. Maybe not even a landmine. You know what I mean? USA versus USSR. You cannot beat these stakes. I mean, that is some of it's more of a moment especially when you sprinkle in the Cold War at this time, than any recent Olympics, any Super Bowl, any World Series, any NHL Finals, any NBA Finals. So for me, this is a 9.6 out of 10. So that brings us to a final score. My math is mathin', 46.2 out of 50. It is pretty elite. It is pretty legendary. But is it the best? Well, you saw the board before. I think, for D6.2, it climbs past, our this is our founding board. Past that LeBron James 5, it pushes past the Beatles at 4, it jumps Michael Jordan's flu game, and then it settles in at number 3. It couldn't catch the fall of Berlin Wall, 46.8, and it sits well below Apollo 11. We landed on the moon, 48.5. I mean, this season is about one question, because this is season 1, episode 1, right? And it's about one question. Can entertainment ever beat history? Today, the answer is no. The board has spoken. The Miracle on Ice is the 3rd greatest moment ever recorded. So the Miracle, I guess it takes the bronze. But next week, we leave history behind. We're going to go to Hollywood. Can a viral moment, a moment of pure celebrity chaos, compete with the Miracle on Ice? We are putting the slap on trial. And if you don't know what the slap is, maybe go ahead and Google it. All right? Not that we're going to Miami. Not that we're going to get jiggy with it. Not that we're going to be men in black. But we are going to talk about the slap. All right? I'm Beard Laws. This is the best moment ever. And the leaderboard is, well, officially open. That's all we got. We'll be back next week for season 1, episode 2, The Slap. Take care, everybody.
This is the best moment ever.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. 5 throws. Here's a swing.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
This is the best moment ever.